Welcome to Season 10 of The Great Indoors, where we continue to explore cutting-edge innovations shaping the world of connectivity, technology, and customer experience, all through the unique lens of human impact and meaningful change. I'm your host, Matthew Roberts, and as ever, I'm joined by Larissa Yee, my podcast producer extraordinaire. Now, I'm excited to continue our journey here in Barcelona, recording live from Hall 3 at the Amdocs booth. This is our third consecutive year recording live from Mobile World Congress, and I have to say, this year's show is more impressive than ever. MWC 2025 has truly outdone itself with over 109,000 attendees from across the globe. This global hub brings together the brightest minds in connectivity, innovation, and technology. And in past seasons, we've explored everything from 5G advancements to the rise of generative AI and the evolution of IoT. However, this year, one key theme is really emerging loud and clear, and that's partnerships, and why that matters more now than ever before. In today's increasingly complex and polarized geopolitical climate, partnerships have become critical. Companies are navigating supply chain disruptions, evolving regulations, and shifting alliances. To succeed, businesses can't go it alone. They must build strong collaborative ecosystems that foster resilience and innovation. In this episode, we'll dive into that theme with insights from two industry leaders. Chivas Nambiar, the GM of Telco Business from AWS, and Manish Singh, CTO from Dell. They'll be joined by Avishai Sharlin and Amir Kaiser, both GMs at Amdocs, and myself, of course, to unpack how collaboration is driving innovation across telco, AI, and customer experience. Whether it's AI factories, sovereign AI, or empowering smaller operators, these partnerships are enabling telcos to unlock new value and better serve their customers in today's dynamic world. So grab a coffee, or even dependent on the time of day, a glass of wine. Sit back and join us as we explore how partnerships are shaping the future of connectivity right here live from MWC 2025. So here we are, it's MWC 2025. The Great Indoors is coming back to you live from the show floor here at the Fira. This is episode number 1 on day number 1. It's early Monday morning, and I'm really proud to welcome two guests to kick things off here in Barcelona. We have Mr. Chivas Nambiar, who's the General Manager of Telco at AWS, and also we have our very own Avishai Sharlin, who you may know from the podcasting world as well. He had his own very successful podcast. So welcome, gentlemen. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So let's get into things. Chivas, tell us a little bit about your role at AWS and your mission and how everything's going so far.
Yeah, I run the telco business at AWS, and what that means is for our top 50 customers globally, I help them figure out what they need to do to transform, and then for the industry as a whole, I set direction for the industry.
Okay. And if you had to, I'm a marketeer, so I like stories, and if you had to tell the AWS story, if we were in an elevator together, how would you tell me that story, Chivas? How would you explain everything that's going on in the world of AWS right now?
So AWS, we like to say we build things when customers ask for it. So 90% of what we build, and we are a technology company, we're built to help customers figure out what they want to do to serve their own customers. And we are a technology company that enables it, that provides you with capabilities to do that. If you think about the origin of what AWS is, we started as a compute infrastructure for Amazon.com, which is the biggest retail organization in the world. And the genesis of it is we were building a lot of compute to support Amazon.com. Over time, we realized that infrastructure was something we were building for our peak. We saw customers also doing the same thing, and we said, hey, what if customers needed access to this kind of infrastructure to deal with their demand that was also cyclical, and then started to build some services around it, offered it to customers. Our original customers were developers. They really liked having access to infrastructure in a way that they could pull out a credit card, go buy some infrastructure, rent some infrastructure really for a period of time, build some new capabilities, and then scale up as they needed it, scale down when they didn't need it. Yeah. That's the origin story for AWS, and for many years we've kept building on top of it based on what our customers have asked for.
That's wonderful. It's a fantastic success story. And I'm going to ask Avishai now, obviously Amdocs and AWS are partners, but what's key to this partnership, and how are we helping our customers overcome their challenges through this successful alliance with AWS?
I think Chivas touched it when he spoke about the mission and the vision of AWS being solution-driven company. I think in that way, the two companies are teaming together to create a solution that fits the market. And in that sense, we found Amazon to be at the front, always there with us, trying to tackle the most sophisticated and complex problems of our customers in their journeys, different journeys to the cloud, or embracing the cloud, or using the cloud technologies as part of their own transformations.
Yeah. And what do you think is the uniqueness that Amdocs brings to this partnership?
Many. First of all, we know the market inside out. So I think that we bring the market insights about, what really matters when it comes to our customers. Second, we're there in the trenches. So we can provide not just, the general information, but also the in-depth understanding of both the software and the network. And combining them together with the skill set of AWS is something that is unparalleled in the market.
Yeah, cool.
I'd also say the telco industry as a whole is nationally critical infrastructure in most places. And having an understanding of the industry like Amdocs does, being able to really think through what is necessary to run that infrastructure at scale over many decades of working with customers, that's a huge value that Amdocs brings to the industry. And then as a key partner, we are always motivated to make sure that Amdocs can provide the best set of those capabilities to our end customers, joint customers like the telcos of the world.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it's on this podcast over the years, we've had many AWS guests, and it's great to see every year it growing, the partnership, the longevity, the sustainability. And then we look at some of the big customers that you've worked with, like Comcast or Telefonica. But as we look at, this is a global show, we have service providers from all over the planet of varying sizes. What is it we can do for those smaller operators that may be a little bit more hesitant or haven't embraced that move to the cloud at the same pace as some of the big players?
I think it always helps to start with, why do smaller operators want to go down this journey of modernizing, right? So in most cases, their end consumers or enterprise customers want a new set of features, want a new set of capabilities. There's not really a lot of value in just, hey, I have a piece of infrastructure, I rebuild it onto something different, I get exactly the same capabilities. If you talk to most CIOs in the world, they'll look at it and they say, what do I get after going through this whole process? But I think the thing that I love about what Amdocs does, and as they've been on this journey with us, is the pace at which they're developing new capabilities. And how do you help the smaller operators of the world have access to the same technology that some of the bigger folks do? And be able to take that into their business as quickly as possible. I think that's what together we can enable.
Yeah, I agree. I will add, many customers are looking today at two phenomena. One is the TCO reduction. And the other one is what we call the hybrid cloud, which is a mixture of using cloud, public cloud infrastructure, but also leaving some parts on-prem. And the ability to have a solution that works in all different variations, especially for small telcos that are not looking into necessarily a sophisticated, very complex solution, rather a straightforward one, that on one hand allows them to be on par with their TCO, and on the other end be able to modernize themselves is key.
I haven't had a chance to walk around everything yet, and I'm sure you gentlemen haven't either, because we're only a few minutes into the show. But I have seen it already on signage on some of the booths. Is 6G, right? Probably for the first time. It was talked about briefly in various circles last year. But let's start with you on this one, Avishai. What's your perception of 6G and what it's going to bring us over and above where we currently are?
So I think the main thing for me is the fact that the network is becoming software driven completely. And this means that all the push for automation, all the push for things being software driven is going to the main road. So you will not be able to work unless you have a well-oiled machine, which is fully automatic, which is everything is software driven, and all your capabilities are aligned and orchestrated in the right way. So I think 6G is the next step on one hand, but also the one that will take us completely into the software-driven network domain and into a full automation. Obviously, will be aligned with Gen AI and with all the infrastructure that needs to be in place.
And what learnings do you think, Chivas, that we can take from 5G into the next iteration, as it were?
I think I'd say that 6G is still super early, right? So we're not at a point where we can really define what it is yet. There's an ambition for it to be, as Avishai said, fully software defined. Really think about what are the things that we learned in the 5G advanced era, where we talked about being able to take networks, being able to take small virtual slices of it in real time, have APIs that program the network, go build really, or take all the power of it being software and being able to be dynamic in how you build and deliver features. And if you think about the 5G deployments, we're not there yet in most cases. I think we're still kind of working our way there. Some of the key capabilities like slicing are finally starting to become available as 5G SA becomes available everywhere. Now, in the 6G era, I think what we will learn from that is that it's more important to get that delivery mechanism of software to be well set at the beginning of this process, as opposed to trying to do it as an add-on and an afterthought. So I think that's something will get fixed as 6G comes along. And then there's lots of exciting opportunities as you kind of think about the evolution of the technology itself, right? So 6G is going to have all of the usual stuff like higher throughput, lower latency. That stuff is great. But then you start to think about what those dense networks look like at the frequencies you need to operate. And then you start to have some really interesting conversations about, I am going to start to have all of these devices, all of these surfaces, all be part of that 6G ecosystem to deliver custom patterns for the devices that are going to take advantage of 6G. Then you start to say, well, to do that, you really need a lot more processing and you need a lot more of that AI-driven intelligence to talk from that base station to the device. That means you're going to need to have that intelligence sitting closer to the edge, which then leads us to that thing that we talked about in 5G, which was having a lot of mobile edge compute near the cell towers, but we didn't really mandate that be deployed. I think that's going to change with 6G. So I think as that evolution happens, it is going to be fantastic to see that compute sitting next to it, accelerated compute in some cases, and then it's going to open up a bunch more use cases for end customers.
Now, we didn't prepare this next question, but I like to throw in a curveball, and I'm going to ask both of you the same question. Maybe it's a controversial question, but I think it's an important one, and I think it's a question that's going to be asked at this show this week a lot. Given the investments in the network, in spectrum, and the number of years now that it's been in deployment, would we consider 5G a success? Avishai?
Well, I'm not sure we can consider it as a success. I wouldn't say a failure, but for sure, it's not where the industry wanted it to be in. Having said that, I think the industry, like any other industry, is finding out that ripping out old technologies is harder than what you think. We still laugh a lot about the fact that they are still recruiting COBOL developers, even though people said, it's a dead language. We still are converging away from mainframe, even though everybody said, mainframes are dead for 20 years, and IBM is doing, I think, more money than mainframe than ever. So
That's a good point, yeah.
5G is not necessarily taking the industry by storm, but it's yet another step. And another step for us understanding that being humble and taking things at a certain pace is not so bad.
I think it also depends on who you ask a little bit, right? So if you are a consumer, In most cases, if you're on a 5G network, you have pretty much unlimited bandwidth. You have a great experience for all of your video watching, and which is primarily the majority of traffic in the world at this point. If you're a telco, if you're an enterprise, again, similar characteristics, you may not be getting quite what was promised, which was like the very controlled, private to you networks that are spun up on demand, scaled on demand. That we've not gotten there yet. But I would also say, like, if you're an operator, you've invested all this time and effort and money into it, and you're still looking at an industry that's at best growing at 1% to 2%. From that perspective, it has not actually been, I'd say, a success in terms of returns on that invested capital. I also think it's early, right? In 5G, again, all of the things that we talked about, the things that we promised, as what could
we dreamt about, all of these things, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Those, they're only starting to materialize. If you talk to some of the other suppliers and partners here, they will tell you, like, now that infrastructure is rolled out, you can start to see this become available. You can start to see some of these capabilities that we talked about, where you can take autonomous vehicles, you can take AGVs, be able to think about doing some of that processing with the lower latency that you want to actually make that use case viable. It's starting to get there.
Yeah.
The bigger challenge is, like, the commercial models that allow you to charge more for it, and how do we find our way there? There are some use cases.
Yeah.
We talk about APIs in the telco and the network industry a lot, but now in the last 2 to 3 years, I can see, like, as countries start to open up some of these APIs to their networks and make it available. Brazil's a great example where all 3 operators have opened up common APIs. Now their financial sector uses those APIs to detect fraud in the ecosystem. And the operators are making money where they didn't make it before. So there are places where you can see the tide.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. To say it's a success or a failure is a sweeping generalization, when actually, if you look at certain countries and locations, they've evolved and adapted with 5G in different ways. If you look at China, where there's heavy private enterprise networks and the automation of a lot of industries, whereas you look at the United States, where it's fixed wireless access has been the flying, use case. So I think maybe it's not such a controversial question. We can get a location and point to successes for sure. This podcast and for the whole week has to get into generative AI, right? Otherwise, that is the talking point. Avishai, from your perspective, how transformative is generative AI right now? Is this one of the most profound leaps in software that you've seen in your career?
By far, yes.
Yeah?
By far, yes. I think we're not even starting to understand the magnitude of the change that Gen AI would bring into the world with a different generation, not necessarily, the one that we're in, but if you look into the very short history of this domain, the amounts of money being poured into it, the amount of brain that is being invested into taking it to the next level. On one end, people are fearing technology and what can become of this. On the other end, the results are staggering. I think education will be completely transformed. So not necessarily just our industry, the world itself is going to be changed by this technology in different levels. Healthcare, education, manufacturing, and many other. We're touching glimpse of it, with digital twins and other, what we call the agentic era, which is just the beginning of transformation for something which definitely, the way I look at it, is going to completely change our industry and our life.
Yeah. Chivas, what's your perspective on that?
I think the best way to think about it is, what do people envision the future being with Gen AI? And you start to say, you mentioned education is a great example, right? At any point now, you can go learn and do research about a space in a way that was not possible even 2 years ago, right? With that context, that data that's available to you through these models and the vast amount of data they've collected. that's just a thin slice of how people do work. Now you expand that out to everything that you do in your life. At this point, like I've got to a point myself personally where that first ask is not to a search engine. To an LLM somewhere, right? Depending on the flavor of the day that I'm playing with. But what that tells you is that as everybody starts to get comfortable with it, I think there is a lot of change that it's going to drive. And so there's going to be a lot of concern for a little while as people really figure out what the new normal is. But we've gone through these transitions in the past. And what happens is like you start to use it, and then as it gets cheaper, as it gets more effective, you end up using more of it over time. And more usage leads to better and differentiated use cases. And we talk in AWS in terms of flywheel. So you kind of think just applying it to the telco lens again. And you say the telco is typically, you want customers using your telco services, which typically drives investment in your networks and your systems, which drives products and capabilities you can build. And you look at that flywheel and you say, can Gen AI be applied to every piece of it? And I think the answer we're learning is yes. If you want to build better networks, you want to think about placement of your radio networks, right? You can use all the data that you have. And before it was hard for people to do it because it was bound by human comprehension. Now you can do it systemically through Gen AI-driven capabilities. You are monitoring things. Your agents are continually monitor for you on your behalf. If you're building new systems, developers are getting so much productivity out of Gen AI tooling. And then if you think about just like network usage, I think Gen AI is going to drive much more usage as the creative use cases start to get better, and you want a lot of that at the edge. So all of it is going to get accelerated, and in 3 years, 5 years, it's going to be a fantastic place to kind of see the innovation happen.
And that's brilliant, and that's where I wanted to go next, was you applied it to the model of the telcos and how it's going to potentially transpire. But what do you believe, Avishai, are the untapped opportunities for service providers right now with generative AI? You mentioned agentic, the era of agentic AI. Dig into that a little bit more. Where do you think there's an immediate...
So people speak about agentic. It's, you don't need to come to our podcast because everybody speaks about it. I think the area of networks is untapped, and those of you who can go to the Amazon booth can see a great demo of ours working with the Amazon and Amdocs and NVIDIA technology all together, showing a very interesting use case around the network, how to automate the network, how to build digital twins, and how to try and tap into this domain. Obviously, the care is something that everybody is looking into, the customer relations and how you can automate the dialogue between a customer and a potential care center, being an agent. Sales, marketing, all those domains are being touched by potential agents today, which can accelerate or, in some cases reduce the friction and provide better and more accurate data. All this is, as any other technology, is being smooth and being rigorously going into generations. And I believe as time goes by, it will become more and more relevant for this.
And do you think, this just came into my head when you were speaking then, Avishai, the partnerships between Amdocs, NVIDIA, AWS. Obviously, Amdocs has partnered with AWS for many years now, and generative AI will be 3 years old this year. Has the evolution and advancement of that technology strengthened the need for those partnerships?
I think that it goes back to the opening questions of yours. I think the answer is yes, because you see companies that on one end are striving for excellence, on the other end are seeking for the business opportunity and the real demand from the market. So the combination between companies that are always at the top and trying to push the technology to its limit, but on the other end trying to find the right business ecosystem to fit it into and to find the right solutions for a given customer demand is something that is driving those three companies to work together and provide a solution.
I think it's also a question of where do you as a company want to spend time, right? If you are, as Avishai mentioned, trying to solve real problems that your customers have, that your business has, is there value in you going out and trying to figure out what is the infrastructure that you need to run and maintain and manage Or is that undifferentiated heavy lifting for you and you let somebody else take care of it? And I'll give you a couple of examples from some customer conversations and customer builds that we've done together over the last 2 to 3 years. When customers initially started going down this path, maybe 2 to 3 years ago, there was a point of view that there was going to be one large model that would dominate, and that's how things would evolve. And then you go back and look at even the last 6 months, and you look at the change in the pace of that decision making on what models to use, in what use cases, how do you tweak it, how do you tune it. If you had made those decisions that bound you to specific things, and all of your investment was there, now you're trying to figure out how to unwind it, how to unspool it. And so the question that I find my customers asking in many cases, like, how do we retain some choice without having to go through all of the engineering work to rebuild everything every single time I make a different decision? And it's as simple as it's saying things like, if I want guardrails around a model that says I can look at what input comes in, what output goes out, and I've built a set of guardrails around it because that's important to my brand, my business. If I decide to pick a different model, do I have to go redo all of that engineering?
Yeah.
If I do, that's wasted effort. So then how do you find a partner that helps you build that? Right? And the similar thing with Amdocs, I think, too, like for our operators, do you want to build something into, say, your billing mechanisms, your bill view mechanisms, where you are going to have to go build and custom engineer a lot of those capabilities? Or do you take somebody like an Amdocs who has all of that context of that bill data for decades with your customers, and then allow that to drive, and you define that customer experience you want, which in this case is going from reactive to proactive, right? Something's changing. How do I go trigger that action? Make it an outbound reach out. And the customer feels that contact is positive versus the negative.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things where you have to think about what is the outcome you want to drive, and then which partner lets you get there.
Yeah, perfect. Now, let's do a bit of future gazing. So we're still only 25 minutes into the show, and there's always 1 or 2, 3 big talking points that will materialize through the week. And I think we know what they're going to be, and we've discussed many of them on this podcast. But if we went forward 12 months, what do you think will be the headline for this show? What will be the big, from now until next February, what's going to be the big thing that captures the industry? Avishai, let's start with you.
The obvious aspect would be Gen AI, or some flavor of Gen AI. I think that we are going to see some additional new things covering this domain in the next coming 12 months. So I don't think that this is going to disappear. Whether it's going to be the next theme of next year depends a lot, on 6G and other, and the way that you mentioned you are a marketeer, the marketeers are working, they will not, if they call it this year the Gen AI era, next time it needs to be a different slogan.
Yeah.
But I think as an industry, Gen AI is not yet fully exploited, and we'll see a lot around that.
Yeah. Good question, Shivas.
I'd say you probably will see a lot more conversation in the next year about more autonomous networks, especially for the operator audience. We're starting to see early experiments yield some interesting results where if you can take out and map the entire network footprint you have, put it on a graph, realize all the interactions between these things, and then say, when something starts to impact that network, how quickly can you react to it? How quickly can you become aware of it? That, I suspect, is going to start to, we'll hear people talking about levels of autonomy in network operations, but for anyone who's run networks for a while, you know that the long-term cost of running a network is really in that network operations costs of the main care, feeding, maintenance, and management of these networks. And using Gen AI, using AI in general to actually drive down that cost, to improve the reaction and the responsiveness for customers when they're starting to see an issue, that's going to become a big theme for us from all the conversations we're seeing with our customers.
Okay, brilliant. Now, the final thing we do, close things out with a bit of fun, is our quick fire round we call TGI to go. So I'm going to give you a multiple choice, and then you're going to give me your preference.
Right.
Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
TGI to go, here we go. TGI to go. Question number 1, and the same question to both of you, so let's start with you, Shivas. ChatGPT or DeepSeek?
Whoa. As a builder, DeepSeek.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? Why is that?
Because you want to look at something that allows you to drive down the cost of usage of these things. Because the less it costs, and as long as you can make it secure, in fact, one of the things that I think we do well at Amazon is with our Bedrock model, you can take a model like DeepSeek, put it into Bedrock, put the right kind of guardrails around it, and allow you to use more cost-effective models over time, right? So I think it allows you to pervade more of everything that you do with a lower cost model. I've had CIOs tell me that if the cost of running a transaction can be brought down 50%, 70%, they could get more intelligence into every single transaction that they can have with the customer. So I think DeepSeek actually, and is the evolution of models get you there.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I will take the same answer from slightly different angle, disrupting the disruptor.
Right.
I think disruption
I like that.
As a concept is something I like, and they, like ChatGPT disrupted everything, and then someone disrupted them. So even you cannot be complacent even if you are the disruptor.
Yeah. I like that. That's great. Now, when the show finishes, you could go to Chicago or Nashville. Where would you go, Chivas?
Chicago.
Where do you live, actually?
Just outside DC, Washington.
Okay, all right. So you'd like to go to Chicago?
I would love to. Yeah, I've spent time there.
Yeah.
I've never been to Nashville, so I don't know what to compare.
Music? There's loads of music in Nashville.
Okay. And Chicago, lots of steaks.
Yeah. So you could watch some TV tonight.
Yeah.
Would you watch some science fiction or a good historical documentary?
Usually science fiction, but I've been watching Shogun here recently.
Okay.
And, give me that level of quality and I'll take that.
Okay, awesome.
Science fiction, clearly.
Have you got any tips? Any recommendations?
Everything.
Yeah?
Everything, yeah.
Are you a Matrix?
I'm Matrix, I'm Star Wars, I'm Star Trek, everything. Everything. I like it a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I always throw in a cuisine question because we're in Barcelona. So, paella or lasagna?
Paella, of course.
Have you had paella yet since you've been here?
No. Huh? It's usually the last day that you want to
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, it's tapas. Neither. I like the tapas.
Of course. Now, one that I always like, and I'm British originally, so baseball or football?
The real football, or?
And that's why I had to say British. I mean American football. Or we could say soccer, if you have a preference there as well.
Soccer, big time.
I think of the three, soccer probably.
Soccer.
Yeah.
And what team do you support? DC United? Is that that's the local team?
That's the local team. Yeah. Have to.
Yeah.
But no, I don't follow soccer anymore. But if I had a team that I followed, I only follow. I'm a fair weather fan for the World Cup, so it's just Germany.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
And has been since I was about year high.
Oh, awesome. Great. And I know which football. Sorry. You answer the question.
No, soccer for sure.
Yeah.
Two small kids.
Yeah.
All around football. One is a goalie. One is a. So yes, all around it.
And Chivas, I'll let you into something. I know Avishai is a Manchester United supporter, right?
No.
I remember the first time we met, you were wearing a Manchester United scarf many years ago, and I'm a Liverpool supporter. So it's a dodgy one.
This is why I'm sitting in between.
Yeah, exactly. But there we go, guys. There's the first episode done. I want to say thank you to both of you to taking the time. I think it's been a great conversation to kick things off. Really enjoyed your company and your time and your answers. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and I hope you enjoy the week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Great. So welcome back to The Great Indoors, day 2, lunchtime. We're not even halfway there yet. Another fantastic morning, but I'm joined now by 2 incredible guests that I'd like to welcome to the show. Mr. Manish Singh, who's the CTO of Telecom Systems at Dell, Thank you for joining us, Manish.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'm joined also by Amdocs' very own Amir Kaiser.
Hi.
So we're going to have a great conversation now. And let's start off with you, Manish. Let's talk about the partnership between Dell and Amdocs, why it's so important, and what are the individual elements that you believe makes us stronger than our individual parts.
Absolutely. Super excited about the partnership, very complementary. Dell was very much focused on building the infrastructure for AI factory, sovereign AI, and more. And Amdocs is clearly the leader in bringing all the required software infrastructure and applications to operationalize that AI factory, that sovereign AI. So it's a very complementary relationship, really excited about it. And the end objective and the end goal is to really accelerate the deployment and adoption of AI.
Yeah. Do you want to add to that, Amir? How is it important, as from your perspective, partnering with Dell?
Yeah, so as I said, we are very complementary. I think it's all about adoption at the end of the day. And we're trying to accelerate adoption, and we're trying to cater for all different needs and ways to actually take AI and make it work and make it used. And I think the partnership is a very good way to do that, because it brings together everything you need. So you don't need to go and collect the different pieces and figure it out yourself. We bring an end-to-end solution, which is from the infrastructure level, from the cloud, private cloud management level, all the way to building agents, to creating the applications and the monetizations of your factory, right, or and basically generating a Gen AI business for the telcos that can generate revenue for them. And this is where we see a lot of the interest, and this we see like many are taking this initiative, and I think we're bringing them something that they can look at it and say, okay, we now understand how to monetize it, we understand how to make it real.
And I've heard this several times already, just at the beginning of this conversation. Let's talk more about this AI factory. Manish, what's that whole concept? What's the whole notion, and who's involved in this initiative?
So think of any factory. What do you have? Raw materials in, finished goods out. In an AI factory, the raw material in is the data. Yeah, that's the raw material. So first of all, anybody who wants to build an AI factory, they need to get the data layer up. The outcomes, or what comes out, are the use cases and business outcomes. What sits inside the factory floor, at the very bottom, is the infrastructure. So GPUs, networking, storage, all the key infrastructure elements. On next layer up is the ecosystem, which is where the partnership between Dell and Amdocs is absolutely critical to make that happen. And what sits on top of it is the services. And again, Dell focusing on the infrastructure services, Amdocs as a broad suite of services, bringing all of this together with an eye towards the use cases and the business outcomes with the telcos. That's what the AI factory is.
Awesome. And can you give me some examples of those use cases, Amir? Which ones are we seeing right now?
We started with the telecom use cases, right? So the telecom could be the first customer for their factory. And we have our care agents, our sales agents, and network agents, which give the most impact in telco. We want to see accelerated adoption of these things. By the way, this is another way to do it. Okay, so you make it available, make it very easy to launch, implement, integrate, and so on. And then we view it as an opportunity for the telcos to go out and sell to their enterprise customers agents, use cases, right? Applications, Gen AI applications, and Gen AI services. So they basically become like a Gen AI provider to their enterprises, create this new revenue stream. And when you're talking about specific agents, our belief is that the world is going into a verticalized agents type of world, meaning that like we have verticalized telco agents, it's going to be for each vertical. I mean, there will be things that are more generic or horizontal, but when you need to go deep and into real domain expertise like we have in telco, we will enable them to go also to other industries, to financial services, to insurance, to healthcare, to other places, where you can give a lot of examples of the different use cases, but this is not just us and not just Dell, right? We are supporting this ecosystem, right? But use cases and agents will come up and will be developed and we will partner with them and we will accelerate that and will enable the telco to become the provider and to have a marketplace that provide those applications and again, create new revenue streams for the telcos.
Going back to that's great, thank you, man. Going back to your analogy before, which I really like, Manish, the factory, the idea of the data coming in and the use cases coming out. And obviously Amdocs and Dell being in that factory. The data that comes in is the customer data, right? That Amdocs can help with and all the other partners and constituent parts are in, and then the use cases come out the other end. So what other partners can we talk about in that ecosystem within the factory?
Yeah. I mean, to really understand that, let's break the problem down into three big buckets, right? First, for the telco, what's the biggest asset? It's the network. And in there lies in how do you improve your network operations? How do you drive better efficiency and more, right? Within the network, what can you do? And there's a whole suite of use cases. The second thing, or the second bucket, would be the customer. How do you improve customer engagement, customer experience, billing care, customer care, and more? That's, so again, a whole suite of use cases. And the third bucket, which Amir touched on in terms of monetization and bringing AI as a service, GPU as a service to the enterprises, to their end customers. This is where sovereign AI comes in. There are clearly tailwinds behind that. Many countries are looking at building their AI factories. Telcos as service providers in those markets are the trusted entities very well positioned to build that. And if you look broadly at the AI factory construct, it will enable network use cases, customer use cases, and also enable telcos to offer sovereign AI capability.
I like that sovereign AI term. That's the first time I've heard that. It's a really interesting term.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it, right? I mean, we're talking about intelligence generation. We are talking about language generation. We're talking about token generation. And if we really peel that, language has context, culture, localization. And this is where the sovereign nature of that becomes important. And that's why, as I said, there are real tailwinds behind building these sovereign AI factories. And telcos are very uniquely positioned, and they are actually moving. Now, with the partnership between Dell and Amdocs, our joint goal is to make it easier for them to deploy these sovereign AI factories for both internal use cases and offering services to their headquarters.
And this is something I've picked up on just 2 days into the show. And I'm sure you've been to the show many years. I know Amir has, right? And then when you come away from the show, there's normally a couple of talking points that stick with you until the next year. Is it fair to say so far that I think one of the things that is more prevalent than ever this year is partnership? We talk about it every year, but this year it's physically present, it's demonstrable. Would you agree with that notion, Manish?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, to make all of this real, think of it from a technology stack perspective, right? No one company can do it all.
Yeah.
And this is where that collaboration, that partnership becomes essential. That's why, as I said, we're really excited about the partnership with Amdocs, where we're focused on building the best-in-class infrastructure, Amdocs working in all the models and the agents, as Amir talked about it, and bringing all of this together with our complementary services, focusing on the customer, accelerating their outcomes. That's our focus. Absolutely. Collaboration is key, and really excited about this partnership.
Yeah, and I will add to that. I mean, the technology is developing so fast. You cannot be good at everything. Like if in the past someone said, okay, I'll take care of the whole thing, it's impossible today. It's not just collaboration in the sense that, we like and we do like each other, right? Like each other and therefore we collaborate. It's a real need. And it's really complementary. And it's much easier today also to integrate things and combine things and make them work. Obviously, we have NVIDIA. We're not here right now, but it's like a very strong collaboration, both on the engineering side, the offering side, right? And other partners that are in our ecosystem that we are collaborating with together in order to bring, as Manish said, to bring it fast, to enable them to start small and scale if they want, start whatever at any point, so they can make it their go-to market happen fast. and we make this thing real. So it's not like a huge project now that you're going to wait years. Actually, it's something you can start immediately. You can start consuming it yourself with the agents that Telco can use for these help, the ones that Amdocs bring to the table. And then you can grow from there with the infrastructure and with the very close ties that we have on the technological side. We are always kind of planning also for the next 6 months and the next year, and then we're sharing the roadmaps and making sure that this just enjoys the continuous development of this technology, which is moving at an incredible pace.
And that leads me perfectly into my next point that we can talk about. If we said that partnerships being real and tangible this year is something that I've noticed, I think the other thing, to your point there, Amir, that we're not talking anymore about these things. They're happening, they're in production, they're moving. Last year it was just a lot of hype and talk about generative AI and how AI had been reinvigorated. But 12 months on, it's happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking now, but we've been working for more than a year together.
Yeah.
And so yes, we've announced now the setup and the operationalization of the AI factory with Amdocs, with NVIDIA, with Dell. But while we're doing that now, it's almost more than a year plus worth of work that we're now bringing it. And to Amir's point, the other thing I'll add, it's not just here and now one time. There is continuous planning that's going on to make sure we continue to evolve the offering as well.
And again, let's look forward then. We talked about the past, the partnership, what we're witnessing. What do you envisage, Manish, 12 months from now, if we were back speaking here collectively, without giving away the roadmap or without giving anything away, but what would you expect to see in the industry as a large and between Amdocs and DA?
Simply put, I mean, the infrastructure capabilities will continue to improve on all in terms of amount of compute, storage, power, cooling, compute efficiencies, they're going to improve. The models themselves are continuing to improve, and we will continue to see open source models have arrived, so we'll continue to see that. And Amir touched on it earlier. This is the year of agents, of bringing the agentic framework. So moving from what generative AI was being used as a co-pilot, which was great, improves productivity, to now with agentic frameworks moving towards autopilot, where you give the agent a task and the agent goes and completes the task. So you can see the amount of gains that are going to be. There's going to be a multiplicative effect.
Well, I think this is, I totally agree. I think this is the year of accelerated adoption, that we need to see these agents really getting into play and being used across those organizations, becoming more agentic. And basically, it's the next generation of enterprise software, basically, right?
Yeah.
Making everything more agentic, maybe extreme automation, and creating new capabilities. So this is the year of adoption. This is why we're here, to try to. So no one will have excuses why they're not using it, because we're making it real for them and helping them actually, the telcos get this into and turning this into reality. I think we'll see accelerated adoption this year, and we hope for that, because there's so much value to be utilized as part of this journey.
Now, let me ask a question that's a little bit more subjective, a little bit more emotive. How much we've all been in this industry for many years. How excited are you about the developments we're witnessing and continue to witness around AI right now? How does that compare historically with everything you've seen, Manish, in your career?
I mean, I've been in this industry around this block for a very long time. We're talking decades. I'm probably dating myself a little bit. There has really not been a transformative technology of this magnitude arriving at the speed at which it has already arrived, and the speed at which it is going, that I have seen.
Yeah.
So the opportunities for improving productivity, improving efficiency, and monetizing are absolutely real here and now. And those who will move to seize these opportunities will have great business outcomes. Those who sit around, I fear for them.
Yeah. No, I love the way you put that as well.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was very powerful. What do you think?
I totally agree. It's with the early adopters that will enjoy this the most. I think it's an opportunity for telcos to go beyond connectivity and really provide services like they've been trying to do for a while, right? And they're really expanding on it, being part and leaders of this Gen AI revolution, and then expanding also the offerings and what they bring to their customers. So it's a great opportunity. I think obviously you need to have faith in it, you need to believe in it, you need to jump into the water and then actually do it, right? And we see more and more interest and more intent to do so. And we are there to support it. And I think whoever will take it first and will be the ones that will lead, they will enjoy very much this opportunity. Yeah.
Okay. Now, look, we're coming towards the end of what I wanted to talk about. And how we finished the podcast, Manish, is with a bit of fun. We've had some serious conversations about the partnership, about the future. And now we're just going to have a multiple choice round called TGI to go, where we get to understand a little bit more about both of you. And it leads to some other extra conversations, which are nice. So are you ready for TGI to go?
Oh, let's go.
TGI to go. All right, let's start with Manish. ChatGPT, Gemini Advance, or DeepSeek? If you had to use one of those three models just for your everyday right now, which one is your go-to?
I'm actually using a lot of ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah. Well, what do you think about the DeepSeek? Because you referenced it yourself, the open source models coming through.
I think it was an exciting and is an exciting development, especially looking at the improvements that DeepSeek delivered. I mean, we are going to continue to see, but there are a couple of things, right? I mean, the improvements that did. See, there are things that did improvement in terms of compute versus communication. I actually think there's a bitter lesson to be learned that in the world of AI, if you want to scale, bring in more data, bring in more compute. Yeah, I mean, some interesting things there. I still think that there are better ways to scale. But the work they did on reinforcement learning, the work they did on group policy optimization, those are really interesting developments. And I'm really pleased to see that they have open sourced the model, and now the rest of the community is going to benefit from that.
And is it not interesting as well that they did it under such constraints?
It's been talked about and said again and again, and I'll just repeat it. Necessity being the mother of invention.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Same question, Amir.
Yeah, so I'm also a ChatGPT user, right, myself. We're using, obviously, when we're developing our agents, we're using many different Llama. We use a bunch of them, right? Because we're not connected only to one. We use the ones that are more efficient for or fit for the specific agent or use case that we're developing. But I agree with the fact that whoever comes in and challenges the ecosystem creates more innovation and more growth. So I'm actually glad these things are happening because it affects pricing, it affects thinking, in this case also the architecture, right? I mean, they're putting stress into the system and it's actually good, right?
Yeah.
So
it was a disruption of a disruption.
Yeah. So it's
in many respects.
This is happening so fast. So people are disrupting each other with something that is already destroyed. Yeah, it's crazy. But that's the kind of the world we live in, right? I mean, it's like dog years now. So
exactly. Question number 2: football or baseball?
For me, football.
Football. Are we? But you live in California, right?
Yes.
Are we saying American football or like soccer?
Oh well, I was saying American football,
okay, but
cool. I also enjoy soccer.
Yeah, okay. So we just came back from the CMO presentation panel where the CMO of Qualcomm just talked to something they were doing with Manchester United, and I'm a Liverpool supporter, so I got up and left.
I'm a 49ers guy.
Oh yeah. Oh, you live in Mountain View, right?
Yeah, the Bay Area. Yeah.
Okay, same question.
Football, yeah. I mean, I used to follow baseball a lot. Back in the days, I think baseball, you need a lot of time to really follow because you need to watch a lot of games to know all the stats and everything. Then it'd be beautiful. Yeah. But I like football. I like soccer as well.
And since it was a fun question, I'd add cricket to it as well.
I was going to add cricket.
For that, you need really a long time.
You see, I'm from England originally, and obviously cricket was my baseball growing up. But I don't get to see it as much now in Canada.
I still follow it.
You still following it? Awesome.
And basketball.
And basketball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, that was cool. So after MWC, Manish, you can go on vacation. Would you go to a beach resort or a mountain retreat?
Actually, I already have plans for that. I'm headed to Whistler for a ski trip.
So you're heading up to Canada.
There you go.
Nice. Whistler's the best in the world.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Great snow, great mountain.
Awesome.
We're going to GTC, so I'm not sure what vacation you're talking about. But if I had to, I don't ski. No. I have all my friends who are skiing come back and hey, you keep safe. But But
have you booked your summer vacation yet, or your March spring break?
I'm not planning that far ahead. No. But any beach would do. That's fine.
My next question was going to be skiing or sailing, and I think
I already answered that.
You've already answered that one clearly, and I think Amir as well.
I like to stay on solid ground.
Yeah,
That's good.
You could have a drink, Manish, after I'm sure there'll be drinks here in the happy hour. Would you have a glass of cava or a sangria?
Probably have a sangria.
Yeah, that's refreshing.
Champagne is also an option.
Well, the champagne will be here as well. You could have all three. Let's face it. Yeah. Okay, and then my final question: sci-fi movie or a drama movie? Are you a sci-fi guy, Manish, or a drama guy?
Actually, I'd enjoy a sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any recommendations, tips?
Well, we already are seeing The Matrix Reloaded. Why don't they stop it?
I get so much fascinating insights and market research, but The Matrix is probably when I ask that question, it's the number one answer for all of our guests.
It does make sense, especially with AI. At the end of the day, it's all Matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I mean, Matrix is one of my favorite movies. With Lord of the Rings, so that's like a drama with a sci-fi, right? Yeah. So we see Matrix becoming reality, which is kind of interesting.
Well, doing this podcast all week here, I feel like I'm in the Matrix already. I need to unplug by the end of the week, I can tell you that. All right then, gentlemen, look, we've finished. It's been a wonderful conversation. I want to wish you the best of the week and everything that you've got planned. And it's been great to meet you, Manish, and thank you for joining us, Amir, on The Great Indoors today.
It was great talking to all of you, and thank you for and Amir again. Thank you for the partnership.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, Amir. So there we have another episode in the bag. Thank you, Chivas. Thank you, Manish. Thank you, Amir. Thank you, Avishai, for joining us in such a busy time at the show. But it was a wonderful conversation, and I look forward to seeing you all again. So please check out our website, amdocs.com/The Great Indoors, for all extra content, videos, back episodes, you name it. It's a treasure trove of content for your delight and delectation. Also, leave us a review if you feel so inclined. It certainly helps us. And we'll be back next week for more riveting episodes from the show floor at Mobile World Congress 2025. I'm Matthew Roberts from Amdocs in Barcelona, and have a great day wherever you are.